Gee, Fred, you're listening to Classic Car Talk with Paul and Richard.
Hello and welcome. I'm Richard McCann and I'm joined by my friend and fellow classic car journalist. It's the one and only Paul Guinness. Say hello, Paul.
Hello, Paul.
Oh, it's going to be one of those days, I can tell already.
I think you're right. Do you know what? We're both crazy about classics, so if old cars are your passion as well, you're definitely in the right place.
True enough. Let's get straight in with this week's classic car news. What's happening, Paul?
Well, I'm going to start with a news story from the UK. This one concerns an annual event from Haggerty Insurance. It's the Festival of the Unexceptional, and it really is a fantastic show. Have you been before, Rich?
I've never been, but I've heard all about it. I hear it's a great event.
I think we need to make a date for this year then. It takes place on Saturday the 25th of July. There's a change of venue this year. They needed a bigger venue because it's becoming more and more popular. So it's now at Grimsthorpe Castle in Lincolnshire. And as before, it's a show that celebrates I shouldn't use this word, but I guess the mundane of the classic car world. So the basic versions of your everyday cars, the kind of cars that your dad might have owned back in the 60s, 70s. It caters for cars from 1966 to 96, so a broad spread of ages there. And to give you an idea of the kind of cars it attracts, last year's winner was a 1977 Morris Marina Deluxe Estate, of all things, which the judges described as gloriously original. Second place was a Vauxhall Chevette. So that gives you an idea of the kind of cars they're aiming for. They're more likely to have a Metro than a Maserati or a Zastava rather than a Zonda. And because of that unique approach, this show has really taken off.
Well, they're the cars we all remember. And while it's great to see a Ferrari, we can really relate to the cars that we had and the cars that our dads drove.
Exactly, the kind of cars that we all grew up with. Okay, so the entries are now open. You have until February the 14th to enter your car. So if you've got a car that's suitable, built from 1966 to the mid-90s, then all you've got to do is go online to unexceptionalcars.co.uk before February the 14th, get your car entered, and if it's picked, well, we'll look forward to seeing it at the show.
Fantastic. I did actually go to a sprint meeting at Grimsthorpe Castle last year. That is a really great venue, so we do need to be at this year's.
We'll definitely be there.
Yeah, that's terrific. Can't wait. But Paul, as for the budget, getting there, you know the annual travel budget that you gave me. Well, I did spend it all in one go last week.
The whole lot.
The whole lot. I flew to the States. I knew you'd approve.
Oh, so that's where you were. Hang on, you said the sound of the Mecum collector's car auction I heard in the background when I rang you last week was on the TV. So I was sat at my desk in cold, wet England, and you were having a drink in the Florida sunshine, I suppose.
Yeah, it's called division of responsibilities,
yeah,
mate.
Well, whatever. We'll have a chat about this later off air, I think. But seriously, though, how did the auction go?
Well, being American, everything's bigger. The cars, the crowds, the prices, and even the auctioneers themselves are bigger. Let's hear a snippet of how it sounded.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bullitt Mustang.
Yes, that was the Steve McQueen Mustang coming into the hall. And here's how the bidding went.
3-4, Jamie. I'm watching you as well. 3-4, pin pie. 3-4, 3-5, 3-4, sir.
I think it's down to the phone bidders. Alex's guy seems to be out.
3-4, 5. And now 5 out of it, sir. If you want in on the car, let us know to get 3,500,000 under bid. 3-4, 3-5. I'd get a 3-5 bid. Hit 5, folks. Are we all done? Catch the bullet. You want to get 3,500,000 under bid. 3-4 is a bid. And it is at $3,500,000. $3,500,000. $3,500,000 out of bid. I hate to depart. Not going to have a 3-5 bid. You want to get 3-5, 3-4. Not going to have. Are we all done? 3-4, 3-5 bid. Could have been a 4. Now 5, Jamie. 3-5 bid. 3,000,004, 3,000,005, 3,000,004, 3,000,005. One last time. 3,000,005. Or you, 3,500,000 out of bid. You want to get 3-5 bid. Not going to have 50 years from now. You look at your life. Did I catch the bullet? 3,500,000 out of bid. You want to get 3,000,005, sir. 3,000,005. 3-4, one last time if you want it. Want to get 3,500,000 on a bid. 3-5, you've been a worthy player, I thank you. 3-4, 3-5, it is a 3-5 bid.
Here it comes.
Ladies and gentlemen, sold car $3,400,000. Sold it $3,400,000.
For the first time. In almost 46 years, the most legendary movie car of all time changes hands. $3.4 million. And 2 thumbs up from Sean Kiernan as he prepares to drive.
A bit different to our British way of doing it. As you probably heard, that the ex-Steve McQueen Bullitt Mustang made $3.4 million. That's about $3.75 million with the buyer's fee added.
That's incredible.
Yeah, just a few beers and a chicken dinner short of £2.9 million.
So definitely a world record for a Mustang then.
Ah, amazing. There were 10 days of selling. An incredible 3,500 cars crossing the auction block. All the enthusiasts were there. It was just a great atmosphere. And they're broken up, so there are quite a few special categories. One of the ones that I really loved was the movie star categories, the hero cars, they call them. And as well as the Bullitt movie car, there was Eleanor from Gone in 60 Seconds, the Mustang. And there was the evil Christine from
who could forget that?
Yeah, the Stephen King movie of the same name. And I even got to see the Batmobile, and that's a car I wouldn't mind driving around in.
I could see you in that, Rich.
It wasn't all American muscle at Kissimmee either. For example, a car that attracted a lot of attention was a 1983 Cortina, a 1.6L Mark IV in Crusader trim, no less.
Cortina in America?
Absolutely. Apparently, it's the only one in America. It was in lovely condition.
So a recent import, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it had come in, I think, last year, and it sold for $4,500.
Very good. Excellent.
Yeah, nice car. Well, we'll be returning to sales in future shows during our Market Watch section. That's in conjunction with our friends at Silverstone Auctions. The next classic car sale coming up in the UK is Race Retro. That's at Stoneleigh next month. And then the Practical Classics Restoration Show. That's, of course, at the NEC in March.
Fantastic. That's one I'm particularly looking forward to. Anyway, that's great. Now, though, Rich, let's return to the UK, because one piece of rather sad news that's occurred this week is that what remains of the historic Longbridge factory near Birmingham, which was originally the home of the Austin Motor Company, of course, well, it's finally being demolished 15 years after the collapse of MG Rover.
Sad.
And, yeah, I don't know about you, but I think that's it's sad news. It's the end of an era. We haven't had mass production there since 2005. Current owners of MG, SAIC, a Chinese company, did start small-scale final production of some of their models, but I think even that stopped about 4 years ago. So no more cars will be rolling out of Longbridge, and what remains of the factory, the final car assembly buildings, which those who work there knew as Cab 1 and Cab 2. Well, as we speak, they are being demolished. Fortunately, certain sections of the site are being retained, certain key buildings, like the former Roundhouse Design Studio and the old Austin Administrative Block.
Oh, good.
They're being retained for posterity.
Good.
But, it's the end of an era. I mean, this is a factory that started producing cars in 1905, would you believe, and carried on with mass production right through to the early 21st century, of course, till the collapse of MG Rover. And over the years, it's produced some absolute classics from the Austin 7 of the 20s and 30s, Brilliant. If you like, the people's car of the UK, I guess.
For sure.
Personal favourite of mine, the Austin A30 and A35 of the 50s. Which
love them. I had the Frog Eye Sprite based on the 35, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And of course, you're old enough to remember the A35. Sadly, it's before my time. Although I will admit I have owned a few. So yeah, I can appreciate them, and it is a favourite of mine. And of course, in the 60s there was the Mini. The 70s, Longbridge used to produce the Allegro, and through to the 80s, it was revamped for the launch of the Metro. So it's a factory with a lot of history behind it, and sadly, it will be no more very soon.
Oh, end of an era. I guess that's progress. But...
Well, indeed. Particularly sad for me, because Birmingham is my home city.
What? I didn't know that. I thought you were from South London, mate.
No, afraid not. So it is my home city, and I like to think of Birmingham as the Motown of the UK, although I suspect Coventry might have something to say about that.
No, it's Motown, that's for sure. OK, time for a break.
Here's a man who knows that driving is a skill. he uses Michelin X tires. They serve his skill best, ensuring absolute mastery of his car. Accelerating with Michelin X. Cornering with Michelin X. Braking with Michelin X. To serve his skill best, a good driver chooses Michelin X tires.
Welcome back. Now, Paul, it occurred to me the other day that 2020 is a very interesting year for classic car anniversaries. We've got anniversaries every year, but I think in 2020 we've got some really important birthdays happening. And many of them are sure to be celebrated this coming show season.
Oh, they're sure to be. Yeah, in fact, I was thinking about this the other day, Rich, because there are a lot of cars celebrating their anniversaries in 2020, and because there are so many, I think if we're going to talk about them, we maybe should split them up a little bit. So I thought for this show, why don't we kick things off with the cars that are about to turn 40 this year? So if you like, the class of 1980.
Ah, excellent. I like the idea of that. What should we do? Choose a couple each?
Yeah, why not? And shall I get the ball rolling?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, drum roll, please. I'm going to go with, and this will come as no surprise, Rich, the Austin Mini Metro.
Oh, dear. Here we go. Of all the cars you could have picked from 1980, and we've got some beauties there, you have to go for the British Leyland route, don't you?
Well, you know me too well, my friend.
Actually, I am only kidding, because on this occasion, I'm actually in agreement with you. The Metro was a crucial car, not just for BL, but for the whole of the British car industry. It was a make or break model for the firm, really, wasn't it? And it did go on to be a big success.
It did. It was a bestseller. I mean, right from the start, here in the UK, it competed with the Ford Fiesta for the accolade of best-selling super mini. And even in its later years, when it became the Rover Metro with the K-Series engine, and then finally rebadged as the Rover 100, it still had quite a following.
Yeah, most British listeners will probably have a soft spot for the Metro, even if that soft spot for some of you is the local landfill.
Oh, that's harsh.
And if you're listening in the US, you're maybe not quite as familiar with what was essentially, well, it was the original Mini's successor, if you like, complete with the modern Super Mini styling, proper tailgate, but it still had the same good old A-Series engines.
Well, it did, but let's remember, it didn't actually replace the Mini at all.
Well, no, that's right. In the end, no, it didn't, because although throughout the 80s it did affect Mini sales, which were in decline, until the reinvention of the Mini Cooper, the start of the 90s.
Well, that's true, yeah. I think that's a story for another time, but yeah, we've definitely come back to that. But there's no doubt the Metro was a big hit, and let's remember as well that from 1982 you could even buy an MG version.
Yep, I had one.
You had one, complete with red seat belts, of course.
Yeah.
And if you were feeling really flush, you could go for a turbocharged version.
Yeah, and let's not forget, bit of knowledge here for you, Paul, that the Metro was the car favoured by Lady Diana Spencer when she started dating Prince Charles.
Yes, we all know that. I well remember her W-Reg Metro. Actually,
I'll trust you to go one.
You do, well, you know me in trivia, but you do realise, Rich, that Diana's early Metro, that still survives. In fact, it's on display at the Coventry Motor Museum, if you fancy a look.
You really
I can see
are.
you're tempted.
Well, I certainly am. You really are full of useless information, aren't you?
I try.
Yeah. One thing I do remember about the Metro from 1980, though, was the TV ad, because BL had to make it a success, so they threw a fortune at promoting their latest baby. Let's have a listen to that.
Some of you may have noticed that for the past few years, Britain has been invaded by the Italians, the Germans, the Japanese, and the French. Now we have the means to fight back. The new Austin Metro. The new Metro is so aerodynamic that at a steady 50 miles per hour, the Metro HLE gets 62 miles per gallon. The new Metro has a split-action rear seat to let you choose between more space or more seats. And to help send the invaders back where they came from, the new Austin Metro goes 12,000 miles or 1 full year between services.